Man, Ben and Dylan start right here.
Yeah, they're running a bit late. We gotta get this done. The show's gotta get out. We only have so much time.
Like, what do we do?
I don't know. What do you think we do?
Dylan. I guess we just start without him.
In the immortal words of Freddie Mercury, the show must go on.
The show must go on. So this is SportsZone.
Hello and welcome back to the season premiere of SportsZone. And we're going to do something we don't usually do on SportsZone. We're going to talk tennis. It's a new project for an all-new year of SportsZone. So, as many of you may know, U.S. Open just ended. This weekend was the two final matches. But the big story doesn't even involve a final. It involves a semifinal because Serena Williams, who was looking for the calendar Grand Slam, it would have been the first calendar Grand Slam since I believe the 80s. I believe Chris Everett was the last one. But she was looking. The U.S. Open was the final major of the year. She was defeated by an unranked opponent, Roberta Vinci, in the semifinals to ruin her chance at that calendar Grand Slam. So, Ryan, what are your takeaways from Serena's defeat?
Well, it was shocking to pretty much everybody in the world. Everybody thought, especially after what all the top tennis players in the women's side were pretty much out. Sharapova withdrew, Kvitova lost, Wawrinka. Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong side. Kvitova lost, Halep lost. So it was pretty much looked like it was Serena's tournament to lose, and she didn't seem to fail on that front. She lost 6-2, 4-6, 4-6. Roberta Vinci played phenomenal tennis, so you can't take that away from her.
You're absolutely right, and as you said, Vinci moved on, made an all-Italian final of the U.S. Open. It was Vinci versus Flavia Pennetta, who would then go on to win. So Vince, what are your takeaways from the women's side of the tournament?
I think it just shows that beyond Serena, there really isn't a pyramid of power really especially after Sharapova dropped off. There's really, when you look at the men's side, you have consistently 4 or 5 guys who you know are going to be in the semifinals every year. And with women's tennis, outside of Serena, who you can almost kind of bank on being there all the time, you really don't have that type of dominance. And you see a lot of parity, especially in women's tennis, when Serena fails to win. As you know, the winner, Flavia Pennetta, was the 26th ranked woman in the world. So that kind of just shows the state of women's tennis, the lack of dominance, especially from the top 10 ranked players.
Yeah, Vince makes a really good point, and he talked about the pyramid of power that you have on the men's side. We're going to swing over to the men's side because the final match, somewhat maybe predictably, maybe not if you just like rankings like some people do. Number 1, Novak Djokovic. Number 2, Roger Federer is your final. So that's kind of what you would come to expect if you follow the seedings. Djokovic would defeat Federer in 4 sets, but a really good match generally all around. Roger Federer, I mean, he's something else. I mean, if you look how long he's been around to still be where he is, that is really just something. And Vince, I'm going to start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on the men's side, Djokovic winning his 10th major title?
I think it's really just Djokovic separating himself from the pack. He's really kind of taken the steps, especially it's almost interesting to see as Rafael Nadal has really went on the decline really quickly. Djokovic has ascended almost as quickly, and now he's dominant. He's basically, when he goes into a major, it's, is he going to beat himself? Is he going to get frustrated? We kind of saw in his semifinal matches, he was breaking down, he was screaming, he was ripped his shirt off. You know, that's really the only thing that's going to stop him, is his anger and his almost mind games with himself. He's become that dominant in the men's sport.
Yeah, I mean, it looks definitely like you're right. As I said, his 10th major title, which is certainly an accomplishment for Novak. You talked about Rafa Nadal really kind of just falling very quickly, and it's sad to see, but in the end, it's kind of his body failing him. His knees are really pretty shot at this point in his career. But someone who's kind of come up to replace him, you kind of accidentally slipped on his name earlier, Stan Wawrinka, who's had some deep runs into some majors lately. What are any thoughts on Stan the Man?
Stan the Man. Stan Wawrinka actually took Roger Federer to the breaking point. That was the All Switzerland semifinal. It was something that we probably didn't necessarily think of. We would think Andy Murray would maybe be in the mix in the semifinal, but Stan Wawrinka had a great tournament and he's had a great season, and I think he's going to keep moving up in the rankings.
Absolutely, he's certainly been a bit under the radar. And you said Andy Murray actually went out fairly quickly in this U.S. Open, surprising from him. But that is all the time we have to talk tennis. Thank you for joining us. We have more Sports Zone coming up after this.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our segment based off of boxing, and there's really only one big story to talk about here, and that's Floyd Mayweather. He just wrapped up his contract with Showtime, a 6-year, $230 million contract.
Yeah.
I don't know where they get the money, but, hey, that's why he's money. Anyway, so we'll turn to Amir Tyson over here. And Amir, like we just said, he just wrapped up his contract with them,
Right.
a hefty contract, and he's also hanging up the boxing gloves.
Well, he's had an illustrious career. He's one of the greatest of all time, probably the greatest of our generation. Like, no one even comes close to his greatness. For 19 years as champion, 20 years as a fighter, that takes a lot of dedication. And he's made so much money. He just made $230 million in one fight, and he still has the dedication to work just as hard or just as much because he has aspiration. He wants better things in life, but that's his motivation. And I respect him for that, But his opponent, Andre Berto, that's kind of a bad opponent in my opinion, because Andre Berto lost to two of Floyd Mayweather's opponents, Robert Guerrero and Victor Ortiz. He knocked out Victor Ortiz in the 4th round, and he unanimous decision Roberto Guerrero. And they both knocked Andre Berto out in 6 rounds or less.
Yeah.
So that's a little embarrassing. I would have wanted him to face Gennady Golovkin. He's the 2nd best fighter in the world. He's knocking out everybody. He's a sensation. But in my opinion, I think Floyd was scared.
I mean, you said it right there. He's had an illustrious career, no doubt.
Right.
I mean, 49-0.
Amazing.
Just undefeated it's harder to do than one may think. Some people think, oh, Mayweather's gone. At that point, it was 46-0, 47-0. Like, he's just that good. No, like, it takes a lot of hard work at it, and
Without a doubt.
and we all know. And yes, he loves to flaunt the fact that he's undefeated and that he's the greatest.
And he's wealthy.
He's number one, and
Yeah.
and he's wealthy. I mean,
Right.
he went from some guy who was modest to
Modest.
now look at him.
Yeah.
But I want to talk actually beyond that. He is retiring.
Right.
He's number one. And there are other guys. There are other guys who will still take, who could still take that from him.
Right.
Take that number one ranking from him. You have Manny Pacquiao, who I believe next year he said he might
retire in
might retire
2016.
there.
He might fight Amir Khan.
He might.
He's the best boxer.
And
from
that was the
England.
other guy I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about, Amir Khan, who
Great fighter.
he's still up and coming. He's a young guy.
Right.
Number one boxer from England.
Definitely.
Just, I guess, what do you think he could have brought to the ring?
Think
if
about
he
Amir.
fought
Think about
Mayweather?
Amir Khan. He has speed. He's faster than Pacquiao. He's faster than Berto, but his jaw is questionable. Like, the guy that he's supposed to face, knock him out quick because his jaw is suspect.
Yeah.
Like, if you watch him live, you watch him on TV, one little punch, a right hook, a left hook will daze him a little bit. While other fighters like Andre Berto and like Manny Pacquiao, they could take that and keep on moving.
Yeah.
So I feel like if he fought Mayweather, if he fought a fast, speedy guy like Manny Pacquiao, because don't forget, Manny Pacquiao is still a bad dude.
Oh,
No doubt about
Hands
it.
down.
Floyd Mayweather just made him look not as good because that's Floyd Mayweather's skill.
Yeah.
But he's a bad dude, like, for real. But, like, Manny Pacquiao, I think Manny Pacquiao, if Amir Khan and Manny Pacquiao were to face each other, I think Amir Khan would be sleeping at the end of the night. He'd KO.
well, wow. Well, I
I
mean,
think he would.
let's
he
also
would
talk
lose.
about this, though. There is age to do with those two guys.
Yeah.
And there's also a size difference. I mean, I think when
Amir,
you look
Khan's
at
way bigger.
exactly when you look at Mayweather versus Pacquiao, they're about the
Right.
same size.
A little bit, yeah.
And that's why it's easier. And you look at all those pre-match when they do the weight,
Right.
and then they all take that little photo op
Yeah,
going
the weigh
on.
in. Yeah.
They're about the same size.
Yeah.
Yes, there's the whole matter of how hard they
Yeah.
work and train.
Pacquiao's 5'6", Mayweather's 5'8".
Yeah.
They're about the same height.
Do you think that would help then Mayweather if he took on, and do you think it helps Pacquiao if he takes on Amir Khan?
I think
Someone's
Manny
bigger.
Pacquiao has a better experience against more superior opponents. He's fought Antonio Margarito, Miguel Cotto. He's fought Mayweather. He's fought Marquez. Like, he's just, like, in the better sense of the word, he's an animal. Like, he's this amazing fighter. He's outstanding. But, like, he seems like he's not in his prime. He's in the downhill of his career. I think he should just hang up the gloves. Like, he's did so much for the sport. Like, he made it like an international phenomenon. He took after like Oscar De La Hoya when he retired. And then the fight that just happened, Mayweather-Pacquiao, we'll probably never see a mega fight like that again. Because every day on ESPN for 6 years.
For 6 years.
For 6
exactly.
years, every day, that's building anticipation. That's why it was massive when it came out. It was a dud, but
It was. And
money fight, it was crazy. Broke every record.
yeah, and there's another thing I want to touch on. I mentioned the retirements, and you
Yeah.
just mentioned De La Hoya
Yeah.
retired. Floyd Mayweather's retiring.
Right.
Pacquiao's going to retire in the next year, maybe 2 years.
Maybe two.
You give it 5 years down the line. You're much more of an avid watcher than I am.
Yeah.
5 years down the line, give me your top 3, top 4 kind of guys who are in the sport at that moment?
Well, Canelo Alvarez, he's fighting Miguel Cotto. And that's a big fight because the biggest rivalry in boxing is Puerto Rico versus Mexico. And you have the best Mexican fighter, Canelo Alvarez, and you have the best Puerto Rican fighter, Miguel Cotto. So they're facing in November.
Yeah.
But Miguel Cotto probably will lose because Canelo has the skills, he has the counter-punching, he has all that to him. But I really think Canelo Alvarez, he might be number 1. But Gennady Golovkin, he's someone you need to watch. Every opponent he faces, he knocks out cold, So you have to watch for that. Then there's Terrence Crawford. He's like a mini Manny Pacquiao. He's really dazzly, but he's really ferocious at the same time. And then you have the heavyweights, Deontay Wilder, because the Klitschko's have been dominating that for like almost 10 years. After Lennox Lewis retired, heavyweight boxing's been downhill because when there's a heavyweight champion, like the America rallies behind that. Like it feels like you're the toughest person on the planet and everything. But since he's from Europe, like the claim of heavyweight champion's gone downhill since like the 90s, early 2000s, and it's not the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there you have it right there. Going from someone like Floyd Mayweather, who's just hanging up the gloves now, all the way over to who we think is going to be in the top 3, top 4, 5 years down the line. But that's all the time we have right now. Wrapping it up for me and Amir Tyson. Take a break right there. More Sports Zone coming your way. Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is baseball's premier segment, Getting to Third. I'm joined on this panel by the lovely Dan Lignato, Hannah, and Aviva. And so, guys, basically this whole discussion is going to revolve around what we're coming close to, and that is the MLB postseason. So we're going to be discussing pennant races. And basically, let's just start off with the fact of talking about the NL Central. The NL Central features 3 teams with the best records in the NL. I believe the Cardinals also have the best in the majors. And so those are the Cardinals at the top, followed closely by the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Chicago Cubs. And so we'll start off with Dan. Like I just said, these 3 teams are killing it. Absolutely, just you don't want to face them. And they're all young teams. They all have strong cores and great managers too. However, when you look at it, based off of the new playoff format, both the Pirates and the Cubs are going to be facing a 1-game playoff that will decide the fate of, obviously one of those teams moving on to the postseason, which I think now we realize it's not really fair, is it?
It's not fair, but at the same time, I'm not really sure there's anything you can do to correct that. I mean, by nature, the wild card is by definition the wild card. You didn't win the division. Yeah. So, you have to play the wild card game. It's kind of how it works. Here's the thing, though. The Cardinals, as good as they've been all year, are not playing well in September.
No.
That late season magic for them might be running a bit thin. They're 4-9 in September. The Pirates and the Cubs are gaining pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So there's still a chance for a shakeup there. But it is a little bit unfair. I mean, you're looking at a matchup potentially if it ended right now, you'd see Garrett Cole versus Jake Arrieta probably in the wild card game, Pirates versus Cubs. And as you said, it's the best division probably in baseball. So it's only fair that they would get 3 teams, but then to have them play each other, and then the winner of the wild card game would probably play the Cardinals.
Yeah, they're going to have to play the Cardinals.
Basically the road to the playoffs the road to the World Series runs through the NL Central.
Exactly, and I think the thing that's obviously unfair about it is that before the whole system was amended last year, if you were the wild card team, you would have a fair chance to then go ahead and play one of the division winners in the NLDS. But I think the problem that personally I have with it, and now, yes, I am a Phillies fan, and we are the worst team in baseball. And if you go back to our Sports Zone archives, just 3 years ago, we were the best team in baseball. I'm a little bitter. But if you look at that, one team that's worked so hard, and it's probably going to end up being the Cubs. They're not going to make it. But like you said, whichever team moves on, and they have to play the Cardinals, the Cardinals have been floundering as well. Their offense has been not really there at times, a whole lot of injuries, and no bona fide ace. But I want to actually move on to and ask Hannah about teams like the Cubs, like the Pirates, like the Astros in the AL West, and then you have the Mets. The Mets in the NL East, teams that are all young and who are actually contending a year before everyone expected them to. What would you make of that as a GM? If you were a GM, how would you, kind of assess the process of these teams? How are they getting so far?
Well, that just boosts my confidence. If I'm one of these teams that's expected to be behind and now I'm kind of stepping up to the plate and doing well, succeeding, then I'm going to have a confidence boost and I'm going to go out and fight harder. I'm going to play better, get good pitches in there, have good offense, have good defense, know how to set my lineup so that we can continue to succeed.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just all the young talent that's there. I mean, unfortunately, we have Dan here who is a Mets fan. I believe Aviva's a Mets fan.
I am
Mets
a
fan
Mets
as well.
fan.
So I guess I'll also turn to you and talk about, then your home team's pitching.
Oh.
It's scary. I mean, they're doing what I guess you could say the Phillies tried to do, but did it with money. The Phillies paid and brought in these great pitchers. You guys, they're all built from the farm system.
Yep.
I guess what can you make of that? Obviously, Jacob deGrom has taken over as the ace. As much as everyone loves Matt Harvey, even I love Matt Harvey. I guess what do you make of that? And then the impending season inning limit on Harvey. How do you think they're going to work around that?
It's very interesting how the Mets pitching has gone so well from the last few seasons of not having good pitching, and now we have 3-star aces with Syndergaard, Harvey, and deGrom. But the real story for the last month is Matt Harvey's pitching limit. Are we going to shut him down? Are we not going to? The doctor said that he should be shut down, but then our GM says, no, we want him to pitch. I think since we have a 9.5 game lead, we can rest Harvey and Syndergaard and deGrom for the rest of the season, so then they're fresh for the playoffs.
Well. You remember what happened last time you guys tried to take it easy with a division lead? I believe 2007 came to bite you in the butt.
That year still hurts me. I don't
better.
appreciate that. Well, if I may,
okay,
just for a moment, they're not going to shut anyone down. I think they're just not going to pitch and just keep him in a locker somewhere. But what they're going to do, at least with Harvey, I know for sure, he's going to pitch, but he's going to pitch 4 or 5 innings, and that'll be it. And it's just they're going to conserve him that way. That way he can get his reps in and throw, but he's still not, he's not pushing it too far.
Yeah. All right, and real quick before we have to go, biggest story so far leading up to the pennant race, Dan?
Biggest story so far. I think the Texas Rangers' second half surge. They were mired in the bottom of that division until they traded for Cole Hamels, and then all of a sudden the lights went on, and now all of a sudden they're sitting in the second wild card in the American League.
Hannah?
Blue Jays are about to make the playoffs for the first time since they won the World Series back in
1993. 22 years ago. I feel old.
My biggest story is probably the NL Central with the 3 top teams are in one Central division. They all have to play each other in the playoffs.
And I would wrap up by saying it's the NL West where the Giants are falling victim to the curse of odd years and not making the playoffs after winning World Series in 2010, 2012, and 2014. But anyway, we are out of time. And for Dan, Hannah, and Aviva, we thank you. I'm Deepak. Now back to SportsZone.
Welcome back to Sports Zone, and you're watching Ice Time. I'm Rachel, and I have Ryan here. We're going to start off today with our first period about concussions. What do you think about the new introduction of spotters, similar to the NFL's Julian Edelman rule, into every game?
Well, the main difference here, Rachel, between NFL spotters and NHL spotters is that NFL spotters must be physicians, where NHL spotters can just simply be somebody who works for the league or one of the team's equipment men. It's a really interesting topic because in hockey, concussions have been a very, very prominent issue for a very long time. As you can see, Chris Pronger in years recently concussed out of the sport. Now he's working in player safety. Concussions are going to be a ever-pressing issue. Lawsuits will probably occur, but there's definitely the NHL definitely needs to take a little bit more of a proactive approach about it.
I agree. There's some concern over bias as well because these spotters will be stationed in one city and paid by the home team. So obviously it could get dirty with some people not checking out opposing players. Second period, we're going to talk about USA playoff predictions for the World Cup. What do you think about the teams?
The World Cup of Hockey is a very, very interesting method that the NHL is using, especially during the preseason next year. It'll consist of Russia, Canada, Sweden, Finland, United States, Team Europe, which is all the other non-big hockey countries, Team North America, which is all players in America and Canada that are under 23, and there's one more team that we will get the answer for you at some point. But I think the rosters are going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of especially on the Team Europe and Team North America sides, you're going to see Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel on the same team at the same time. That normally doesn't happen.
What a dynasty.
They're truly outstanding. You're going to have to pair them with guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and some of the best young players in the league. That's just going to be a really scary team to watch. Canada, you're going to expect their same veterans. You're going to see Rick Nash, and you're going to see Petrangelo and Carey Price and Luongo. Team USA, you're supposed to expect more of the same. You're going to see guys like Patrick Kane, and you're going to see Paul Stastny and McDonough and Stepan. Team Russia, you're going to get your big five. You're going to get Ovechkin, Malkin, Kovalchuk, Datsyuk, Bobrovsky, and Net. So on the veteran end, they're going to be a lot more predictable than the European team and the North American team. But it should be a really interesting cup.
Good. So third period, we're going to talk about our own playoff predictions. We can stem off of famous John Bucci-Gross making a bold prediction for the Caps going a far way this year. What do you think?
I think John Bucci-Gross is going to be pretty accurate on that. I think the Capitals have acquired a lot of weapons. Ted Leonsis really has done a great job in going out and getting young talent. TJ Oshie,
yes, what a
prime
blessing.
example, one of the better American players, and became famous over his shootout victory in the Olympics against Team Russia. They also brought in veteran talent, Justin Williams. I'm convinced he's Mr. Playoffs. He's always there in the playoffs. You don't see him as much in the regular season, but you always see him very clearly.
Pretty much the opposite of what Tyler Sagan does.
Oh, absolutely. Sagan, I have no idea where Sagan goes.
It's a shame. He just falls off. I also think Tampa Bay could go pretty far. They've built up a lot of stamina, and I think this year is the year that they really will sweep it.
I think Tampa Bay is definitely going to be another perennial Eastern Conference favorite. They pretty much are bringing back their entire team. They're not really losing anybody. John Cooper's got a great approach down there, and they have a lot of great young talent. They're going to be a dynasty for some time.
I would love to see it happen. We're going to finish today's show by announcing Emily Francis is getting the Wayne Gretzky International Award. He will be receiving it at the International Hockey Hall of Fame December 17th in Boston, Massachusetts, for all of his contributions as a goaltender, coach, and general manager for the Blackhawks, Rangers, and St. Louis Blues. So we'll see you next time on Ice Time.
Hello and welcome back to the first episode of a brand new season of SportsZone. I am Dan Lignato. This is going for two, our first edition of the panel of the season. We got a full panel here today. I got Vince, Justin, Ryan, a few new faces, which is always nice to see. But we're right on time. Week 1 of the NFL season has just ended, so it's a perfect time for us to come back. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot happened. So I'm going to go down the line. Vince, start with you. What's your biggest story of Week 1?
I think it has to be the Colts losing in Buffalo. This is the team that reached the AFC Championship a year ago. This might be Andrew Luck's year to get to the Super Bowl. A lot of people's pick to get to the Super Bowl, and they just looked horrible. The new additions, Frank Gore and Andre Johnson, really were ineffective. Andrew Luck got outplayed by Tyrod Taylor. They really made it look closer. The scoreline 27-15 really isn't indicative of how badly they got outplayed. They looked just terrible, and I don't think anybody really saw that coming, especially seeing this is Rex Ryan's first year, and the Bills really don't have a quarterback. So I think that's maybe a little warning signs, maybe too early, but that's a big takeaway from Week 1.
All right, now Justin, you talked before we were on the air. A lot of injuries happen in Week 1. Injuries happen every week. What are your biggest injuries from this week?
Yeah, that's the thing. In football, everybody's hyped up before the season because they have great players on their team. But football's a dangerous sport, and all the great players get hurt. This week, we got Deshaun Jackson out with a hamstring. Luke Kuechly got a concussion. Des Bryant out with a broken foot. The injuries go down the line. Terrell Suggs tore his Achilles. These are major players on major teams who have significant roles on their teams, leaders on the team, leaders on the field, playmakers every year. And these are some big names going out with injuries.
All right, now Ryan, on to a story related to an injury, but we have our first Johnny Football sighting of the 2015-16 NFL season. Break down what the deal is with Johnny Football.
Yeah, Johnny Football's back in business in Cleveland. Josh McCown went out early with a concussion after a very, very grueling helicopter hit at the hands of the Jets defense. Johnny Football came in and he made some key plays early in the game, but just as the game wore on, the Jets defense got better and better and just finally got the better of Johnny Football. So it'll be interesting to see how he can manage in his sophomore year.
And those are some of the biggest stories from Week 1. But we're going to backtrack a little bit. Right before Week 1 started, we had a flurry of movement from some general managers looking to lock up some key players. A handful of extensions really leading up to Sunday's games. Some big players, Eli Manning, A.J. Green, Luke Kuechly, as we mentioned, now hurt, but also signed his big money contract beforehand. Convenient how that happens. So I guess, Vince, starting with you again, which one of these contracts do you think is most significant, the best move by the team involved?
I think it has to be for the Bengals locking up A.J. Green, because really their offense is really dependent on him. Andy Dalton really leans heavily on him, and like when you look at his numbers when AJ Green's in the game versus when he's out, Andy Dalton is a significantly different player when he has AJ Green, and I feel like that gives the Bengals a little bit of a different dimension, especially as they're trying to compete in the AFC North, which is going to be possibly 3 teams deep this year. So I think locking him up and making him a priority may give him confidence going forward, and also will just be really important for the team as they move forward.
All right, Justin, moving on to you. Do you agree that AJ Green is the biggest one? Do you have another signing that stands out to you?
I do not. I think that Luke Kuechly is the biggest signing, and the reason is this guy's the best player in football when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Rookie year, led the league in tackles the next year, leads the league in tackles every year. He's out with an injury, so he might not lead the league in tackles this year, but he's the best player on the Carolina Panthers. He's the leader of the Carolina Panthers. He's young. He has many seasons to come. You can expect Luke Kuechly to come back from his concussion and play just like he has the past 3 seasons.
Well, I think J.J. Watt may disagree with your statement that he's the best defensive player in football, but that's another conversation for another time, I think. Of course, Kuechly, a phenomenal player, really burst onto the scene, as you said, his rookie year. Certainly deserved his contract. Ryan, a few more names out there got extended. These two named 2 different players. Who do you think is the bigger signing?
A team is built around the quarterback. So so Eli Manning is by far the biggest contract extension in football. The Giants really have centered their entire team around Manning, and without him, they would not have the 2 Super Bowl rings possibly. Yes, they signed a lot of great pieces around him: Victor Cruz, Odell Beckham, Reuben Randall, but really Eli Manning's what makes that offense go.
And well said, gentlemen, well said. And that will wrap up our first edition of Going for 2. It's a good wrap-up on Week 1 of the NFL season. Keep coming back because football is just getting started. We've got more Sports Zone coming up after this. Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. Once again, I'm Dan Lignato. I have with me Hannah today. And this is the first edition of our AU Insiders panel, which, as the name would imply, means we're going to discuss some AU athletics. There's a lot going on. It's the fall season. There's 5 sports active currently. But we're going to focus on 2 right now, 2 that are generally very good AU teams and have continued that tradition this year. So we're going to start with some AU volleyball. They've won 12 out of the last 14 conference titles. Coach Barry Goldberg recently picked up his 650th career victory. But they've had 10 matches already so far this season. A bit up and down for them against some quality opponents. Just got back from 2 tournaments. Hannah, what was your takeaway from the tournaments that they played?
Well, it's really impressive that senior Allison Capolino, who's an outside hitter for the team, she was named the MVP at the Columbia Invitational Tournament. So that was pretty cool for AU volleyball. And Allison Capolino, along with so many other players on the team, continue to be powerhouses when they're on the court.
Yeah, and as you said, that Columbia Invitational was the last tournament the Eagles did in New York City. They returned home. They're hosting a tournament this weekend, 3 games at home Friday and Saturday. And before Columbia, they were actually in Hawaii to face some really top-notch opponents, which is important considering the Patriot League is not the strongest of conferences. But they played some good teams, put in some good fights. Didn't necessarily win any of those matches, but it's good to get experience against those teams. What do you think the biggest takeaway is from playing, a top 25 opponent?
I think it's honestly just increasing the competition. When you play a team that really makes you step up your game and fight for the W, that's going to play out and help you out later in the season. If you're playing a team that's kind of easy to beat, you're maybe not taking it quite as seriously as you normally would. But when you step up to face the larger teams, like this weekend they'll be taking on, William and Mary. And when you step up to take a team like that, then you're really fighting harder and you're stepping up your game. You're showing you're going to get more kills, more saves, more serves will go through. It's an all-around better match.
And we're going to shift gears a little bit, head from AU volleyball out to the pitch. We're going to talk some AU soccer, more specifically some AU men's soccer. And that was a team on a real roll for their first 5 games of their season. They started out 5-0, pulled off a big upset on Friday against Hofstra, who was number 17 in the country at the time. Actually were rated in the top 25 last week. They were at number 21 before falling. Actually, their first defeat of the year came yesterday, Sunday, against Fairleigh Dickinson in double overtime. So the team now sits at 5-1. I believe probably still first place in the Patriot League, though conference play hasn't started yet. But what do you have to, what are your thoughts on this team and the real role that they got off to the season on?
Well, it's just impressive to start the season off so strong. And, they lost their first game, but it was double overtime. It doesn't really get better than that. That definitely wasn't a defeat. That was more, they really stood there and fought for it. And they ended up with the loss, but it's okay. They'll bounce back from that. And they've had these wins to start them off, and that kind of gets the momentum going. That's what you really want. It's when you're playing the game, whoever scores the first goal, that kind of gets your momentum going. And so it's like with the wins and losses too. If you win the first game, you're going to be more confident for the second, the third, etc.
Well, absolutely. You're absolutely correct in terms of as momentum comes. And we'll see what happens. The Eagles are going on a bit of a road trip. I don't think there's a soccer game at Reeves Field for another 2 weeks. So they're going to be on the road for a while. They're going to see how they perform there. They've had a very nice season at home, especially as they've had to kind of adjust things. College sports is like that. Graduates leave, freshmen come in. But they've had some really good performances, the men's soccer team so far. And as you said, it's the first loss, but the double overtime is a promising result.
Definitely.
Even if it's a bit of a step down from that win against Hofstra, who, as we said, was a top 20 team coming in. But certainly, they look to play well, take this into conference play. Patriot is a good conference. I believe Navy also received some votes for the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think is going to be key for them going forward as they start to get closer to conference play?
What I think is really key is taking what they had in the loss and pushing that into their next games, so that they kind of know, what did we do wrong, what made it go into double overtime, what made us end up with the loss, and if those factors are something they can control, to add those into their next gameplay.
Well, you can be sure Coach Todd West, one of the best in the business, really, is going to, of course, watch that film, and he's going to, be sure to teach these players, this is where we went wrong, we want to fix this, things like that. It was an interesting game for sure. They didn't really get helped by the officiating all that much. They probably had a penalty kick that they were not given, but that's not in their control, really.
Yeah.
Only control the things you can. And certainly they'll have to do that going forward. Other teams in action, AU women's soccer, they're also heading out on a road trip. As I said, no soccer games for 2 weeks. But field hockey, they're doing pretty well. Recently played UMD, a very good team. And though they lost, they're, I believe, also 5 or 6 wins for them on this season as well. So Coach Steve Jennings has them playing well early on as well. That will be all the time we have for this edition of AU Insiders. Come back next week. We'll have more AU athletics for you. And stay tuned for more Sports Zone after this.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our favorite segment of the day. Thumbs up, thumbs down, where basically we go around and we say what we think is good in sports and what's bad in sports. So without further ado, let's toss it on over to Amir.
Well, thumbs up has to go to Floyd Mayweather because he just finished his career 49-0, and that's matched up with the illustrious record of Rocky Marciano going 49-0. So that puts him in the legends of boxing history. But thumbs down goes to Serena Williams. Like, it's just embarrassing to me that she loses to such a big underdog. Like, she's focused on other things. She's had an amazing career. I just think she needs to focus on other things in life. And she needs to hang up the tennis racket.
Thumbs up goes to the NHL for putting in some concussion spotters in every game, although it's not quite up to the NFL standards. I think it's a good step forward. Thumbs down to the Blue Jays looking like sad little puppies when Big Papi inevitably scored his 500th home run. I think they could have been a little more supportive.
I got a thumbs up and a thumbs down for the Dallas Cowboys. Thumbs down goes to Des Bryant for breaking his foot. He's a key factor on that team. But thumbs up to Tony Romo for another comeback win in the last-minute drive against the New York Giants.
All right, those are all very interesting thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, Justin, not really sure I agree with yours. But I will start off with this. A thumbs up, though it's about a week into it. Thumbs up to the Phillies for finally, firing Ruben Amaro Jr. I understand he's had a very rocky time as GM. He did some good things, but mainly bad, and that's why we're in the cellar right now. Another thumbs up, tonight, which is Monday, October 14th, the Eagles finally open up their season at 6:55 against the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm ready to see us go 16-0 on the season. We've also been projected to have the best odds to win the Super Bowl. So, Anyway, thumbs down. I'm gonna follow off Amir. Thumbs down to Serena Williams, losing to the unranked Vinci. However, thumbs up has to also go to her phenomenal year. And another thumbs down, though, to the Cowboys winning, pulling that one up. But yeah, so basically, overall, it's been a good week. Little bumps in the road. I believe the Redskins lost too, so.
They did lose.
Yeah. But I mean, that's going to do it for Sports Zone for everyone here. Thank you for watching, and catch us next week.